So, welcome back to the Keep Going podcast with Vin Kennedy. I'm your host, Vin Kennedy. Today, we have a special guest. This is Josh. Josh, you want to do a brief intro on yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Vin. My name is Joshua Holy. I'm a resident here in Philly and just a normal guy, basically trying to build a better version of myself.
Yeah, no, I love that. And obviously, we connected at the Project Pandora event, which is a great event Joe puts on every year. And as we just spoke about, I think the best way to do it would just be kind of like run through your story, um, from your younger years to where you're at today, what you have going on, and then I'll just, I guess, interject with questions.
Sure. I grew up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, which is like an hour and a half north of Philly. And I was basically a nerd as I was growing up. I grew up in a single parent home with just my mother and my sister, and had, two aunts, my grandmother in my life. So I didn't really have a father figure growing up. And I think as I started to get older, I started looking for that outside of the home. And around the age of 16, for the most part, I was a good student, getting honor roll and things like that. I wasn't into any type of trouble. But slowly but surely, once I hit my mid-teens, I started falling into a very street-oriented life where I began selling drugs and fighting a lot. And that kind of just progressed into, more and more problems. And by the time I was 21, I ended up getting into a shooting, which cost me, to go to prison for a 5-year prison sentence upstate. So, coming off of uh, a 5-year sentence, I still had to do 5 more years on parole. Went through a complete transformation in terms of, leaving that life and, began working and going to college. So I ended up going to college, started out as a computer science major. I was working for a logistics company, just driving a forklift. And I ended up coming up with an idea to save that same company money and designed an app that got me noticed by their corporate, like their headquarters. So they end up offering me a position eventually. And now I design the software for that same company. And, I'm living in Philly and, recently embraced fitness a lot more, brought that into my life. And so it's just been a huge journey of, living from one side of prime to now living a very correct life and a life that I'm really enjoy and proud of.
It's incredible, man. And I just would be curious, like, what was the big change that was like, all right, I need to kind of like right the ship here and just, 180 my life.
I think it was really just a culmination of rock bottom moments. I had a lot of lows when I was, committing the crime, a lot of lows when I was in prison. And I kind of started to come to a realization and ask myself, who am I really? Because the things didn't seem right in my heart, what I was doing. And I obviously didn't feel at home of where I was. And I started to come to these realizations of, am I just a person who has absorbed, the beliefs of all the people that are around me, or are my beliefs actually my own? And so that was like the spark of me going on a journey of self-discovery, basically, and redefining terms like, what did respect mean to me? What did a healthy relationship look like to me? What did love mean to me? What were friendships? And I came out of that with a lot different of definitions than I started with, and that was a big catalyst to changing a lot of my qualities.
Change kind of take place while you were in prison.
Yeah, I would say because I served 5 years, the first 2.5 or so, I was still in that mindset, absorbing that life. But it was on the way down when I knew, look, it's coming time to go home. And, I don't want this to be my life. I saw so many people leaving, coming right back, and some people leaving and hearing, they were killed or they overdosed from, drugs or something like that. And I knew I didn't want that to be me. I didn't want that for my family. And that's really when everything started kicking off on those last few years.
And then I'd be curious, like, what was that like? Almost like fighting the tide while you're in prison, I feel like changing even around like friends you grow up with is hard. So like I could only imagine an environment like that. Like what kind of adversity did you battle there?
Yeah, there it was more like how can you deal? I mean, it's a whole different world in there. So it's a different management of like dealing with people who have, aggressive tendencies. You got a lot of people who have committed some really terrible crimes. But there are ways, especially because prison is so monotonous. There are ways that you can get to a plateau per se and kind of just coast and do your time. You know what you need to do to not cause a ton of noise. There's ways to just stay humble but not be, viewed as weak or someone that you could take advantage of. I was fortunate that about halfway through I did get into a pretty big fight that got me in the hole for a few months, solitary confinement. But after I had came out of that, it, it was kind of like people understood, he went through something and he fought through it. So, people didn't really mess with me. And it's kind of a common thing. People like to look for trouble and there's targets that are much easier. So, it's easier for them to go after those kind of people than people that will resist.
Absolutely. And everywhere I feel like you could always find like a bright light in something. Like what would you say? Was there like a day or a moment or a thing that you would even kind of find like almost peace with or like a bright light while you were in prison?
Yeah, I was definitely seeing as I was making some changes, I was seeing that ripple effect through some of the other prisoners. So for my last 2.5 years, I was teaching in the education building. I was helping teach GED math. And, there'd be people that I'd be working with to try and help them get their GED, but then you'd have normal conversations outside of the education aspect. And some of the things that I was trying to cultivate as far as better character, better control and the perspective of, if you're the type of person that just snaps on people, uh, when someone just uses some words against you, that's actually what's weak. It's not the people who, you're just because you're dominating over someone, it doesn't mean they're the weak one. It means you are. And I started to see people adopting that, some of the things that I was saying and applying it in their own life. And I started realizing, whoa, like just one person can help change other people, and that made me want to change more.
Yeah. And it's funny because like you kind of mentioned in the beginning how like you were almost searching for community, and it seems like towards the end of your sentence, like you almost built community. I'm sure you've built community now in work and in life as a whole.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. There were a few people that I could definitely say were friends in there, and I took a lot of value from a lot of people there who had wisdom and experience. A lot of the people that were doing life, they gave me a ton of value in terms of, don't let your heart harden too much along this line because it's really easy to become hardened, but it's really difficult to like build that compassion into a heart again. And that's why a lot of, people who end up in that life, it's really difficult for them to escape because they need that mind and that heart change.
And obviously I can speak from my own experience as far as like just changing as a person. And do you feel like you almost like shed that identity? Like do you feel like a new person?
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like when I talk about it and I reflect on it, it's like I don't even recognize that person anymore. I'm so far removed from it. And I kind of think we do become a multitude of people over our lives. I'm also, even if I didn't go to prison, I would think I also wouldn't be the same person I was 10 years ago. As we grow and we learn and we build, uh, at least from my perspective, if we're living correctly, some people do stay stuck, which is, their prerogative and their thing. I don't want to judge them for that, but at least for me, like I definitely feel like, yeah, consistently trying to evolve into something better, which will, bridge a gap or make a big gap to who you once were at some point.
No, and it's funny, I just had a conversation with a friend and it's like you can't just like pretend to be this new person as far as like just like own it right away. You have to just like keep stacking in the favor of the person you want to be and then you become it.
That's such a good point. Yeah, because I kind of used to think if there's a person that I want to be and I couldn't, think of like a particular individual, I would just think like, what does that person look like? Like, how does that person act? And I understand I couldn't be that person just in a flash, but the more I, you know, thought about it and the more I made it a priority, like the more you start to ease into those thoughts. I'm a big believer in thoughts are things. So as I was, cultivating those thoughts, you end up becoming and adopting some of those qualities.
Absolutely. And when you were in like those younger years of like crime, did you ever, I'm sure you had like the voice of like we all have the voice, we all do obviously things that I guess like sins or whatever. But did you have like that voice of like, hey, this is wrong? And like what was like kind of your battle with that voice?
Yeah, I think the battle that I had with it was giving myself an excuse. So I sold drugs for 6 years and I would just tell myself, you know, these guys are going to get it from another person if they don't get it from me. Like, at least with me, I'm not malicious. I'm not trying to, steal anything from them. I'm just trying to sell them what they want and make some money. And then I would try to tell myself, I really need the money to do X, Y, and Z, or I'm trying to help, my family that might be, need some financial help. I just lean on those type of excuses. And then when I'd get into some sort of fight or some shooting or something like that, I'd give excuse to myself again and say, well, if I wouldn't have defended myself, these people would have tried to kill me, or, you know, whatever I could really tell myself to sleep better at night. And I did a pretty good job at convincing myself that everything I was doing was for a purpose and it was okay, which kind of just speaks to how closed-minded and how limited my thinking was at the time.
Absolutely agree. But I think it's like like it really is a thing for, and obviously I could only speak to like young men and my own personal experience, but like I haven't drank alcohol or done any drugs in 2 years. And it's like, but when I look back at those times, like you're right. Like it's just like this is what everybody else is doing. Like this is what like I'm supposed to be doing. And I used to even look back of like today, obviously it's Memorial Day weekend. And like I look back at this weekend years ago and it's like I would be like absolutely obliterated all like 4 days of this weekend. And like it's just like, yeah, you just like justify it in your head. And I even like just looking at the future, when I was younger, doing like in that life, and it was just like I just saw no end in sight. Like I was like, well, there's no game, there was just no game plan. And like as a young man, like you really do need things. And for me, that's fitness. And I know for you, it's community and like mentorship and leading. But it's so hard because it's so easy just to follow that noise and follow that voice of like, or not even the voice, just kind of like the crowd.
Yeah, I mean, first, that's amazing. I didn't know it's been that long. So that's awesome, dude. And
Appreciate it.
I'd imagine that that voice that used to tell you like let's get twisted on Memorial Day. I imagine that voice you have now is like, let's get up at 5 a.m. and get these miles. Like, it's just a whole different voice and a whole different character now, which is great. And I would say, yeah, like I just feel like the voices that I have now are so much different. And like, tomorrow is Memorial Day. We got a crew going to do a Murph at 5. Kellen and a couple of the other guys were meeting up. So yeah, it'll be some hype tomorrow.
That's true. And honestly, like, I mean, I speak to like the people that are close to me all about it all the time. Like, my voice now is like the same way I used to, and I say this all the time, but the same way I drink alcohol is the same way I run, is the same way I work out. Like, that voice is the same, but it's just telling me to do other things. And like, I have a hard time with the off switch, especially with like working out. And I know you're kind of in the same boat.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely true. And the people that you are, the people that you keep around you are doing some really amazing things. So I mean that only in turn makes you do the same. So you got a great thing going, man.
I appreciate that. Even honestly, the whole Project Indoor community, like I know the people have you around yourself as well, and like Kellen's a big advocate too. Like that's just that dude goes out there and gets it.
Yeah, and it's crazy because it's just some of those struggle experiences, especially the one he's had. He and I were able to relate to each other so quickly. And like even some of the other Project Indoor people that I meet, they're like, "Oh, so you guys it seems like you guys have been friends for like 10 years. And I'm like, it's only been like 6 months that I've known him, but we just like spend a ton of time together and just, really clicked from that similar life experience. And that's what happens in the fitness world as well, right? It's like you got guys that are really pushing themselves, and when you find someone else who's doing that, it's like that camaraderie just is automatic.
It's true. And it is funny because like even people I relate best to these days are the people that are doing the extreme shit, but used to be like the crazy partiers and stuff like that because we've kind of been through like a similar journey and we kind of like are aligned more so.
Yeah, and I noticed that at the event, which really was cool, honestly, to see how many people made to the Project Indoor event, and then to hear a lot of those stories. Like some people have, been through a lot of tough stuff and have been able to turn that around into a fuel to become better. So it's an awesome community to be a part of.
Absolutely. I think you just nailed it too, which is like that's the mindset you have to make the switch from like you can't be the victim anymore. Like you have to be the one to take charge and it's not easy and you're not going to get it right every day, but like at least trying and like we said earlier just like stacking in the favor of who you want to be is going to get you to where you want to go.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the things that we're doing are like really individualistic as well. And that helps the person who's doing them really learn about who they are. And I think that's a big reason why we fall into, things like drinking and the partying and things because we don't really know. A lot of us aren't confident in who we are or really know ourselves. So we're just kind of following along with the crew. Like if everybody else is doing it, it's almost projected to us like, hey, this is normal. And a lot of people just want to be normal and be included and feel like they're part of something. And if they're not, pushing themselves with a group that's constructive, it's just so easy to be, doing what the other 90+% of people are doing every day. With all due respect to them, again, that's their choice. But for us, it's just a different thing.
Absolutely. And I was just talking to a simple friend about this as well. Like it's you're right. Like you just kind of go with the tide. And then for myself personally, like even just it kind of changed my values where it was just like girls and partying, like that was just like, all right, well, this is what I care about right now. And I think for me, it took until like 25, 24 to kind of start seeing the light. And then I didn't really like lock in until like 26. But yeah, I think it's also like a thing just for young men. Like it's like you need something hard to do that will make you get up every morning.
For sure. I mean, it definitely gives us a sense of purpose. And I think when we have that, we have a lot more potential to contribute value to the people around us.
Absolutely. And what's some advice you would give to like a younger version of yourself?
Man, I don't know if he would listen to me. But I think something really important I would tell a younger version of myself would definitely be to get to the understanding that the way you interpret things is the way your world is going to be. I think we often think there is only one world, but it's really everyone lives through their own experience and everyone sees the world in their own lens, which makes every person have their own version of what the world is. And I think when you come to that realization and you understand that you are in fact creating the world you see based on your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, you can actually come to the realization that you are creating your own reality. And once you can embrace that creation, you can make things happen for yourself that you really didn't think were possible and start writing your own story.
Yeah, I really like that. And something you touched on earlier were like was relationships with other people. And I'm curious like how your relationships change from your younger years to now.
Yeah, I think, well, one part I really feel blessed with is that I did have the group of guys that I hung out with up until I started, committing crimes when I was 16. It was a group of like four guys. They all stayed the good path. Like none of them veered away. I was the one that left that crew, and they've always had love for me. They've, even when I went to prison, they supported me. They came to visit when they could, and they were the ones that I connected with immediately upon my release. And so those relationships are still the same. It's like, man, I was gone for all those years, and I'm sure you could relate to this. You get around certain friends, and it's like you feel like you never missed a day of friendship with them. And I kind of just knew, these are the right people. And even some of them aren't into fitness, but they're into bettering themselves as, fathers and husbands and friends. And I draw so much inspiration from them in those aspects, and very much close with my family. Like, family just means so much more to me than it did when I was young. That would be another thing I would tell my younger self, like 80-90% of the things you think matter aren't going to matter to you, once you start hitting your late 20s and your 30s. The priorities hit pretty hard. So I just focus on getting around good people. I try to keep it simple in that aspect, and always give, people a chance. We could feel that vibe coming off of people when you meet them. Is this a good dude? Is it not? Sometimes we're wrong, right? But for the most part, it's been great just building a good network of people, and just focusing on the right things.
True, man. And I say it all the time too. Like, there's something about the fitness space where like that, like, is it a good person? Is it not? Kind of gets like cleared right away because you're just like, especially when you're doing like marathons and crazy stuff, because you're just depleted. Like, you can't even act if you wanted to because you're in a place of usually like suck. Like, I just ran a bunch of friends just ran 100 milers, and it's like you can't pretend your attitude in that. Like, you're gonna be how you're gonna be, and like sometimes people aren't the best people to be around because they're like going through it, but you're getting the real like authentic version.
Yeah, and I actually I had a chance to join one of the Project Endure team calls the other day, and I remember there was a point where I had said, the fact that like everyone's just on this call right now, it already says something about them. Like, it already speaks to the type of people that they are. So, and I when I think about marathoners, I think the same. It's like there's already a certain level of a foundational level of these people are hard workers. They sacrifice, they're committed. There's a level of discipline there. Running a race like that requires a lot of time and effort, and all those qualities just at just getting up to the lowest level of it, or those are all just prerequisites. So it just makes connecting people so much easier when you're on that kind of level.
It's true. And then you have those psychos that don't train, and I'm like, just God bless you. Like, if you could
Yeah.
just pop out there and run a marathon, like you need, like, I don't even know. I don't even know what to tell you.
I don't know how they do it, man. So I just talked to this guy Josh from Swagger House Run Club, and he was running a race in Rhode Island, and I asked him, "So did you run a training block for it?" And he's like, that kind of takes the fun out of it. He's like, "I kind of just
That's
like to show up
crazy.
and do my thing."
People, man, people are crazy. But that's that. Listen, you learn a lot that day. I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah.
And then something I'm curious is like, I'm sure you're a role model to a ton of people now. Who's a role model of yours?
Oh man, it's a great question. I mean, I I really look up to a lot of people that are just around me. But I mean, if I had to pick, someone like a celebrity or something, I would say like Lex Friedman. I'd say as an example, just off the fact that his primary is just to, you know, show humans that humans are good humans and put value out into the world. He's a humble guy. I definitely like the fact that, he trains and tries to solve problems through conversation. But otherwise, it's really just like a lot of people that I look up to are the people in my circle. Definitely my family and a lot of the people that I train with. It's just so many different qualities that I pull from different people. It's hard for me to even look at a lot of the people that aren't around me. But yeah, I would say that's one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. And the last question I ask everybody is, what keeps you going?
Oh man, I think it's the belief, really. Like, me personally, I definitely feel like I have potential to be something, and I think that that really fuels me. But at the same time, I'll have to admit I'm also afraid of not living to that potential. Like, there's a lot of there's a lot of times that I would say I don't know what I want or what I want to be exactly. but there is a ton of what I know that I don't want to be. And like I don't want to be that guy at the bar saying, I had an idea back when I was young, or I could have did this. For me, I just want to go for it, live, be impactful, and know that I gave it what I could give it.
I think we definitely run faster from the life we don't want than the life we do, right? Like I feel like the stuff that scares us propels us forward way faster than like, people want certain materialistic things or certain things that they think they might want to achieve. The reality of like the life that you could lead that is the life you don't want, definitely propels you forward.
Yeah, you said it way better than me. I'm running from
Yeah.
that for sure.
Yeah, dude, it's so true. And the belief thing is like dead on, and especially like in the world I am right now, especially I'm very ingrained currently in the ultra world with all my friends and stuff, doing all these races. But like the one thing I learned is that like it's just gonna you can do whatever you think you can do, and that's it. That's like the bottom line. Is like if you think you can run 100 miles, you can run 100 miles. If you don't, you can't. Like it really is just as simple as that. Like it's just self-belief.
Yeah, and that's the part that I really enjoy about connecting with people that have done a lot of difficult things is they really don't make it complex. Like if a lot of like I recently started, a program with Joe, like he's my strength coach for the next 6 months. And when we have these talks, he just keeps it really basic. Like we got to get the reps done. We got to get these, it's not like this ridiculously scientific thing. Like let's work, man. And let's stay consistent and it's gonna happen as long as we follow the rules.
Absolutely. And I say that all the time. It's just consistency will get you whatever you want in this life. It's just the truth.
Yeah, definitely agree to that. That's a pillar.
Yeah. But I really appreciate the time, man. I appreciate your story and I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, dude. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm looking forward to watching you kill it.
Yeah. We gotta link up for a run or something soon.
Oh, dude, I'm down. That would be great.
Let's do it.